Welcome to Politics and You. I'm your host, Denise Winfrey. Today we have as our guest Judge Victoria Kennison, who is up for election. Welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm glad to be here with you.
Now you're up for election, but you're already sitting on the bench, so tell our viewers exactly what it is you're running for.
Well, I'm running for a circuit court judge. A circuit court judge is basically a supervisor. They are elected by the voters and they serve a 6-year term. The circuit court judge is responsible for administrative and policy decision making in addition to their regular court call. So associate judges and circuit court judges hear essentially the same type of cases, but the main difference is the fact that the circuit judges essentially supervise and manage the other judges in their division.
Okay, so if this election went your way, then you'd be getting a promotion, basically. You'd become the boss.
I've become one of the bosses.
Okay, good. So tell us some more about your background. I don't know how familiar our viewers are with you, so probably it would be helpful for them to hear something about previous background as a lawyer and your time on the bench, or anything you'd care to share with them.
Okay. Well, currently I'm an associate judge, which means that I was appointed by the circuit court judges. That selection process is based on merit, and that means it's based on your professional experience and service to the community and reputation in the community. So I was honored to receive that appointment in 2011. And since the appointment, I've served in virtually every law division in the court. That means I've heard criminal cases, civil cases, family law cases, and everything in between. I've most recently been focused on the problem-solving courts, and hopefully I'll get a chance to share a little bit more about those with you. But I can also tell you I was acting presiding judge of the criminal misdemeanor division, so for a time this year when the circuit court judge retired, there was a need for an interim presiding judge, so I got to actually act as a supervising judge this year. Prior to taking the bench, I did serve in private practice for 13 years. Here in this office, where I focused primarily in family law and criminal law, appellate law, and juvenile law. Prior to that, I actually started my career here in Will County in the public defender's office. So I was very honored to spend my entire professional career here in Will County. So I practiced law for a total of 15 years before taking the bench. So with my 7 years, I have over 22 years working in the law.
Okay. So you mentioned you worked in the public defender's office. It's kind of a natural fit as I think of the problem-solving courts. When I think of problem-solving, I think of drug court, mental health court, the veterans court, those kinds of things. Is that what you're thinking of? Or that's what you mean when you refer to those?
Yes, that's exactly right. I appreciate that.
So share the tie there for us.
Well, obviously, starting my career in the public defender's office was a wonderful experience. I learned all my trial litigation skills there, and I've always felt very passionately about protecting individuals' rights. I did that as a very strong advocate as an attorney, and now as a judge I make sure that I follow the law and protect an individual's rights when they're in front of me. And so in the problem-solving courts, we are very fortunate here in Will County, as you know. Being a county board member, you know how important it is that we have these special alternative courts to our traditional criminal courts. So Veterans Court, for example, that's a wonderful court where we target the veterans population. So many of our veterans now are suffering. They come back from their service, whether it was international or domestic service, and they suffer from post-traumatic stress or TBI, traumatic brain injury, or depression, anxiety issues. And unfortunately, they have substance abuse issues that correspond with their mental health issues, that maybe they're not getting the proper treatment. If they go out and offend, they violate a law and they're considered to be nonviolent and probation eligible, if they plead guilty so that they take responsibility for their actions, they may come into our court. We will have them fully evaluated, and we work with the Veterans Administration. We have a very team-oriented approach. So we have the representative from the VA, we have a psychologist, we have the judge, a state's attorney, a defense attorney, probation, and other professionals that are involved. And we have a battery of evaluations done to determine what the mental health issues are, what the health issues are, substance abuse issues, and then we make sure that we get all of those issues addressed. It's a highly intensive, very structured program that we've had great success with. So I've been very honored to work in those courts for the past 2 years. As a circuit court judge, it would be my hope that we would continue to grow those courts. As a circuit court judge, I would be in a position to make sure that those courts continue to grow and expand the way that they need to.
I would hope so as well. And those courts are a problem nationally, as a matter of fact. I serve on some national boards, and across the country, especially the Veterans Court and mental health courts, people need to be able to have the treatment that they need in the right format rather than being in with general population, which doesn't really answer the needs that they have. So they need to have the battery of tests, as you mentioned, the right evaluations, and then the proper treatments rather than just being in a cell for a few days, they dry out and they're back on the streets. I'm glad to hear that we are progressing with those courts and are looking especially for our veterans who have given their time and service for us and now need our help.
Absolutely. Our veterans deserve the very best from us as they gave their all for our country. But it's not just the veterans, obviously. You know, the drug court is vital. We are facing a terrible opioid crisis here in Will County and across the nation. The Centers for Disease and Control and Prevention just recently came out with the numbers, the preliminary numbers for 2017, and they estimate the total number of overdose deaths at 72,000. That's up from 63,000 in 2016. It's a terrible, terrible epidemic that we are facing, and you need these courts that are designed to address the specific needs of these individuals because, again, as somebody who has started their career and worked throughout the past 22 years in the criminal courts on and off, I know what that traditional court looks like. I know that merry-go-round. If you are a low offender, a low-level offender, and you're nonviolent, and unfortunately the largest segment of our population in the Department of Corrections are low-level offenders that are nonviolent, and they suffer from these afflictions, these addictions, and they're going untreated, all we're doing is temporarily housing them. We are not getting them the treatment that they need, and when they get out, all they're going to do is reoffend. According to state statistics, 43% of parolees reoffend within 3 years, and 35% of probation individuals who just finished their probation reoffend within 3 years. The state estimates that there's an approximate 20% reduction in the recidivism rate with our problem-solving courts. So these courts are vital. They are not only helping to serve and help rehabilitate in the true sense of the word, rehabilitate these offenders, but they are making our community safer. We don't want these individuals continuing to go out, reoffend, violate the laws, come back into our court system, and repeat over and over.
And as I've seen at the drug court graduation, they want to do better themselves. They just need that help. So if we spend the money to help them do better and be better rather than to lock them up, they become then contributing members of the community, and so then have some sense of self-worth and of pride.
Absolutely.
So I'm glad to hear that you're pushing that.
Yes, absolutely. And I can tell you that it makes sense not only from the standpoint of a personal value of course, these are family members, these are our neighbors, these are our loved ones, our children, and we want them to be healthy, we want them to be productive members of the community, but not just that, this is actually economical, it's practical. It's about 1/6 the cost to put a person through one of our problem-solving courts, the mental health court, veterans court, or drug court, 1/6 the cost of what it costs to incarcerate that person. So that saves taxpayers dollars, and it just makes sense from any perspective.
You will be a woman on the bench. You are a woman on the bench and will continue to be a woman on the bench. What is the one thing that you would say to young women following, looking at you as a model?
I'd say believe in yourself. Believe that you can achieve what you set your mind to. I am somebody who comes from maybe a poor means. When I grew up, I was the youngest of 4 children. My parents divorced when I was 6, and there were times that it was very rough. My mother worked 2 or 3 jobs. As I grew up, I started working from the age of 12, and I've been working ever since. I've never not worked. I worked my way through school, through high school, through college, through law school. I understand the value of work, and there's no greater feeling than knowing that you've worked hard to achieve your goal. And if you would have asked me even 10 years ago if I ever thought that I would be a judge, I wouldn't have thought that that was possible. I didn't even know that that was a dream that I could achieve. But once I had the seed planted and I made up my mind that I was going to do this, I was very honored to achieve this position, and I'm honored to be seeking this next position, and I would love to have the opportunity to continue to serve Will County as a circuit court judge.
I hear that, and I hear you use the word honored. You have quite a few honors to your credit. Would you care to share some of those with the viewers?
Well, thank you. You know, I was honored earlier this year to receive an award from the Illinois Crime Commission for excellency in the judiciary, and that was a really special moment for me. I've worked the last 22 years, as I mentioned, and Denise, you know, you and I served on the Will County CASA board together,
Right.
and that's just one of our many passions that I'm sure that we share, serving our children in the community, and especially abused and neglected children. But over the past 22 years, I've always looked for ways to give back to the community, and I feel that it's important that whatever your talent is, whatever your skill is, whatever you're good at, you are honor-bound to share that. And so for the past 22 years, I've done everything I can to work, especially in the legal community, but to share my skills and experience to try and make the community better. So I've done training for local law enforcement regarding orders of protection. I've spoken at seminars, participated in different training through the Illinois State Bar Association and the Will County Bar Association. I was honored to serve as the past president of the Will County Legal Aid Program, which was a wonderful program that served all of Will County, providing services for indigent individuals such as victims of domestic violence, the elderly, and school children. Yes. I was also past president of the Will County Women's Bar Association, and that I was very honored to serve in that capacity. And I'm still a current member, obviously, of the Women's Bar. That's an organization very dear to me. It's important to mentor those younger women attorneys that are coming up. And in that same vein, I've also worked and serve currently on the Will County Circuit Court Internship Committee, where we reach out to law students around the country and invite them to apply to see if they're eligible to come during the summer months, and we pair them up with different judges and attorneys and give them a very broad experience in the law, practical experience, so that they see what it is that judges do and attorneys in the courtroom. So I'm very proud of that program, and we work with some really wonderful colleagues in the courthouse. I've also worked in juvenile diversion programs. I'm very honored to be currently working with Dr. Ingram in the Romeoville, Bolingbrook area in the HEART program.
Oh, okay. Familiar with
Some
that.
people may remember Ms. Robinson used to
come to the county board each year.
Yes, she was a wonderful lady, and she left an incredible legacy. And so Dr. Ingram has picked up that torch and is doing a wonderful job, I think. She would be proud. I've started in the juvenile diversion program here in Joliet. I did that for a few years. I have worked on the Boy Scouts of America board, past member of the executive committee for Prairie State Legal Services, and other numerous things. I was the coach for the Troy Middle School mock trial team, and that was wonderful to work with the children. And every year I always try and make sure that I volunteer to work as a judge for the University of St. Francis mock trial competitions, as well as Lewis University. So there are just numerous ways that consistently throughout the years I've been honored to work with these different organizations to provide services for our community.
You've had quite a history on the bench, Victoria. What would you say to a young woman who wanted to follow in the law and possibly accede to the bench? If you share that with our viewers.
Thank you, Denise. I appreciate that. I get to meet young women, young law students all the time young high school students who express to me a desire to possibly pursue a career in the law. And I always tell them to make sure to just believe in themselves. Work hard. It's important that they stay focused. Don't let something distract you, no matter what challenges may come up. And obviously any number of things can happen, from personal issues, financial issues, family issues, but you can't let yourself be swayed from your ultimate goal. I was very fortunate as somebody who grew up in circumstances that maybe weren't ideal. My parents divorced when I was 6. I was the youngest of 4 children, and my mother had to work 2 or 3 jobs at a time just to try and support the family. I had to work, my brothers and sisters, we all worked from very early ages. I worked my way through school, through high school and college and law school, and there were times, time after time, that I was confronted with challenges that maybe I thought I could not continue. And I was always able to overcome, found a way to keep going. And it's important that that's what our young women do. I'm very proud to be a female judge here in Will County. There's only about 30% of the judiciary that is comprised of women, and I'm actually running to fill the position of one of our excellent female judges, circuit judges who just recently retired. I'm very proud to see how the women have stepped up in representation in both the law and as lawyers here in the county, and as well as the judiciary. I was also honored to receive the endorsements from the Illinois State Bar Association and Will County Bar Association. And that's a real honor to me personally, because that means that the attorneys who practice in front of me on a day-to-day basis, as well as my colleagues that I serve on the judiciary with, felt highly enough about me to recommend me for this circuit court position. And in addition, I also am honored to be endorsed by both labor and law enforcement unions. I think that's a real testament as well to my performance on the bench, that I have support from both sides of the political spectrum.
And we're honored to have you as our guest today, and we appreciate hearing about all the many ways that you've been involved in the community and have used your background and your skills and your knowledge to share with those who might not have that opportunity. So thank you for being our guest today. This is Politics and You with your host, Denise Winfrey. Welcome to Politics and You. I'm your host, Denise Winfrey. Today we have as our guest Judge Victoria Kennison, who is up for election. Welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm glad to be here with you.
Now you're up for election, but you're already sitting on the bench, so tell our viewers exactly what it is you're running for.